So, the Europe Builds podcast is all about uncovering the untapped knowledge within the European startup ecosystem. And there's no better place to be than the Doers Summit, where for the very first time, founders, investors, and operators are meeting up to turn their ideas into reality.
The timing also couldn't be better. Some European problems may persist, but we're finally seeing winds of change, from the new Commission's competitiveness compass to reducing internal market barriers. There's a lot of room for growth and a lot of room for hope. So for all of this and more, join us for this series of Europe Builds episodes showcasing some of the greatest founders, operators and investors from the Doers Summit.
So nice to have you here with us today, Nico.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So hi, we have with us for our listeners Nick Kalliagopoulos, partner at Big Pie. And of course, if you're a Greek, you cannot not know Big Pie, I think. Like it's been, instrumental in setting up the ecosystem here. But a lot of our listeners are not. So I'm going to give you the chance to give us the dreaded elevator pitch of who you are and what exactly it is that you do.
Thank you for the invitation. Indeed, I'm Nick. I'm a partner at Big Pie Ventures. And Big Pie is a venture capital fund. We're based in Athens. We invest in founders all over the world that have some presence or potential to have some presence in Greece. We have around 120 million in assets under management. Today, we're growing fast. And we typically focus on technology companies, science companies, and the intersection of the two. So anything you can think on AI, machine learning, robotics, data on that side. Then anything you can think on healthcare, medical devices, AI to automate drug discovery, tools for pharma companies or doctors to make the whole process more personalized. And then the intersection of the two, plus climate, forgot to mention. So also solutions that are helping humanity go a bit through the climate challenge.
Do you mind me asking which is the niche that you are mostly passionate about?
Personally,
Yes.
or as a fund?
No, personally.
I really believe that the potential to combine computer science in healthcare is enormous. We're still at the early stages, but actually my view is that we're getting to a part that the problem is not anymore a biology problem, but it's getting a data problem. And hence, when you have teams that you put in the same room biologists and data scientists, you can take us to the new frontier.
Okay, one of the most essential things about being an investor, right, is identifying an idea at the right stage, and ideally before others have, right, and really believing in it and supporting it. Can you give us an example of a case where you backed an idea, maybe even against the current, or against conventional wisdom in the out there, and what made you believe in it?
Yeah, so what you ideally want to achieve as an investor is to back non-obvious companies and then be proven right. Because the problem is that when you back non-obvious companies, there's a high chance you're proven wrong. But at the same time, you want to be others to see what you see earlier, 2-3 years down the line, and not 20 years down the line or 10 years down the line, because then you're too early in the market, but the timelines don't work. Yes, I can give you an example. That's from my previous fund. So I led an investment in a company called AI Motive. AI Motive was a Hungarian startup in the autonomous driving space. So they had zero revenues, obviously, 100 people from Hungary. And they had the idea that they want to do autonomous driving, but not with LiDARs, not with radars, but with cameras. So LiDARs, if you see in autonomous driving, are these things on the top that spin like crazy. And this gives the car a view of the world. And like almost everyone is going with that approach. And then AI Motive had a charismatic founder, Laszlo, who said, this is not going to work. This is too expensive. It's not scalable. Actually, let's put cameras. They're very cheap. And we drive with our eyes. So let's build a lot of artificial intelligence to make sure that we understand the images of the cameras. Now, back then, everybody thought he was crazy. So everybody thought that the camera approach is never going to work because all the big bets were with LiDAR. And everybody thought that even if it works, it's not going to come from Hungary.
Yeah.
So from all over the world, it's going to come from the US, where the companies were raising 1 billion plus rounds. Not valuations, rounds.
Yeah.
So we made that investment. It was a difficult decision. It was a difficult discussion in the investment committee because, of course, these things are never obvious. If it's too obvious, you're doing something wrong. It went really well in the end. 1 year later, Tesla announced that actually we're going with cameras, and then everybody was saying Musk is crazy. Well, he also
might
happen, which he might be, but not at least in that context.
I'm joking.
The company raised new rounds of financing as well, ended up being acquired by the Stellantis group. So Stellantis is Opel, Peugeot, this group, and is now their main R&D hub for autonomous driving and assisted driving. So that was a case where, we did a bet against everybody else, against the odds, and it worked.
In the right timing.
In the right timing.
I'm very curious, like you've been an investor for many, many years now, like a decade or so. What it is that makes a good investor?
So first of all, you need a lot of luck.
Everywhere.
Everywhere, but especially here, because you're investing for the long term, you're investing in horizons of 8 to 10 years, if you want to capture the full value of the companies that you invest at. So many things are going to change. There's so many variables. So luck definitely plays a role. It's not just skill, it's a lot of luck as well. And then it's a bit of skill. And skill, I think it's a lot of preparation, willingness to read, curiosity to understand, and above all, ability to stay humble and understand your role as an investor. So in this ecosystem, we're the cheerleaders, we're the supporters, but the rock stars, they're the founders. They're the ones that are taking the massive risk. They're the ones that are having trouble with their family, that they're not sleeping. They're the ones that are actually making it happen, and we're there to serve them.
So you need a bit of an ego check, sort of almost.
You need a bit of an ego check, because when you manage money, and it's not our money, by the way, it's other people's money, but when you manage money, it's very easy to sit in your office and say, no. And then you believe that you have the Midas touch and you are the guy or the gal, but no, actually, we're there to serve the entrepreneurs, and I think it's quite crucial that we remain humble, because that's our role, to elevate the entrepreneurs and not ourselves.
And can I make it a tiny bit more personal? Why founders choose you specifically, Nikos?
You need to ask them.
Like, what do you think they would say if I had one founder in front of me?
I think they would say that it's personal chemistry, and that probably, if you try to unpack it, is that when I really like something, I get very passionate about something. I try to go very deep, and founders appreciate that. And I try to understand a lot what they're building. I go very deep. I'm not the person that's going to give a term sheet in a day, but I'll do my best to be extremely fast. And then I'll do my best to serve them. And then they will speak with other founders that have seen me in action. But to give you an example, we recently closed a new investment. We were so passionate about it that we saw it for the first time second week of December, and we worked like crazy during Christmas, and we had calls on Christmas Day.
No, it was one of those deals.
It was one of those deals, but the founder himself, he said, although I hate working on Christmas, I really appreciate that you were the only guys that were willing to do that, instead of telling me, let's speak on the 20th of January when I'm back from my holidays, and I'm not even going to speak to others. Let's go together. And people appreciate that. So I think people appreciate when you go all in.
Yeah.
And we also have a philosophy. We do one investment per partner per year. We're not spread and pray.
Okay.
So this is a fundamental design principle that leads to what I just told you.
Yeah.
If we reverse the question, what specific thing is it that you look at when you're looking at founders? Like, can you identify some of the main traits that really stand out to you, and you say this is a promising case, particularly because you do early stage, right? So then it's like even more important to the founders, like more detrimental to the success or failure.
So I'm looking for the same, but times 10. So I'm looking for people that this is their life mission, that they're 110% working on that startup. This is their focus. They're not in there for the money. If the money will come, the money is a byproduct, but they're there to make a category-defining product because they believe in it. So I'm looking for people that have a deep need to change the market they're operating with, that are very adaptable and see opportunities and not obstacles, and they're gonna completely demolish any obstacle that comes across them, and that have the charisma, that understand their markets deeply well and very well, and have the charisma and the humbleness to get great people besides them to work with them. And that means being able to attract and willing to attract better people than you.
Yeah.
So that's the ego part. So you need to be crazy enough to start a startup and go against the status quo. And you need to not to have the ego in order to be able to try to get people that are better than you. And that's the only way you build an amazing team, and hence have a chance to build an amazing company.
What are the type of technologies you're more passionate about today?
The type of technologies, anything that has to do with artificial intelligence, obviously, but today everybody will tell you that. But, AI is not a new tech. AI has been there since the 60s, 70s. And when I was at university, I was studying computer engineering, and we had the AI course. And it was the most, according to most people, one of the most boring courses. Nobody believed it would happen. But fundamentally, it's such an amazing technology and such an amazing concept. So far, we've been giving computers instructions. Do A, do B, then if this happens, do C, otherwise do D. That was the entire computer science mindset, and suddenly it changed to, I helped you to learn and you decide what to do. So that's a huge shift in thinking and opens up so many opportunities. And I think we're really at the very beginning. And then on the health side, I'm deeply fascinated with the genomic space, so understanding our DNA. I mean, our body is actually a computing machine.
Yeah.
And when you start looking at it like that, it's mind-blowing.
And the DNA is the code, right? I mean,
the DNA is the code.
Yeah.
And then you had Jennifer Doudna, who created CRISPR, which is a cut and paste, actually, method for the DNA. So when you look at it as a computing machine where the DNA is the code, it opens up so many
it's a big
opportunity.
It's a big sort of mentality shift, right? If you do it.
It is.
So something interesting about AI is that it could hypothetically allow for different markets to leapfrog, right? Because it's not it can lead to situations where it's not as capital intensive as like other technologies. Or is it? I'm going to ask you. So, does Europe, first of all, have a role in this AI revolution? And does Greece have a role to play in this AI era?
Everybody has a role to play, as long as you pick the right niches. So if Greece starts tomorrow and say, we want to build a new foundational model, good luck. It's quite tough. It's very capital intensive. You need to have access to all these NVIDIA GPUs, etc. At the same time, you cannot generalize. DeepSeek came up, and because China had all these restrictions in not getting GPUs, people have this David and Goliath syndrome. They try to make it happen. They work like crazy, and they make it happen.
For cheaper also, because they work around...
Exactly. So they work around the practical inability to have all these GPUs, and they say, we need to make it happen in a different way. So in that sense, being in the privileged market, you get a bit lazier. Whilst if you are in the less developed countries, you need to work harder, you need to work smarter. So yes, Europe has a role to play. Greece has a role to play. In general, technology is there to help startups fight the incumbents, wherever the startups are. It's tougher if you are from the periphery.
Generally speaking, what I have found is that whenever you put people in a crisis mode, they become a lot more creative, they would put the extra mile. Now, going back to Europe, and kind of you have a few panels here at the Doer Summit talking about Europe. I read through the manifesto of Cherry Ventures, who actually went out and said, okay, we raised this 500 million fund to create the next European $1 trillion company. Thoughts about that? Is it possible or not?
Yeah. Of course it's possible. So thoughts about that. I think it's fantastic. Cherry has an amazing team. Philip, who is the founder of Cherry, is a very bold entrepreneur. And we're missing these type of initiatives. So they say we're not hunting 100 million exits, we're not hunting unicorns, we want to create this $1 trillion exits. Will it actually happen or not? And how many will they have? I don't know. And they don't know. But they're one of the best performing funds. They've assembled a great team and they're very, very, very ambitious. And they give this ambition to the entrepreneurs that they back. And I think in Europe, we lack this ambition. And in smaller countries like Greece, we lack this even more. Yeah. So initially we started with, 15 million exits and everybody was happy and celebrating. And then we had 30 million exits and it was the flagship of the country that a big automotive bought. And then we had 100 million exits. But these are small. We need more ambition. We need more bold entrepreneurs. If you want to play on that game, I'm not saying that a 20 million exit is not good. For some founders, it's life-changing and it's great. But yeah, we can have that. Spotify started from Stockholm.
Yeah.
Skype started from Tallinn. We need more.
So part of that is ambition, right? I'm wondering if another part is the idea of being in a constant war mindset and war mentality, because if you're actually shooting for that level of scaling and growth and competitiveness, right, you're probably going to have to break some eggs along the way, so to speak. So do you think this is also something Europe is lacking? Like, do we have founders that understand this like war mentality compared to the US?
We have less founders that have that, but we do have founders. And by the way, we're talking now about a 0.something% of the population, both in Europe and in the US.
Yeah.
But probably in Europe, it's slightly higher, the 0.8, and in Europe, 0.4. Numbers are random, but this is a quality of the top entrepreneurs. They're always at war.
Yeah.
They're always at war with the status quo, with everybody else, with themselves, and being better.
Yeah.
What we still lack is more examples that are going to give more inspiration to people. And by more examples, I mean not so far away.
Yeah.
Not Bill Gates, who is in the US, but the guy next door that's in London that everybody remembers when they started the company. Like the Deliveroo guys, it's a good example because people remember them starting up and delivering the food themselves on the bicycle and then seeing it get to the stock exchange. Revolut, Nikolai, people remember him starting up, going to events, there are pictures of him. So we need more and more of that.
At Deliveroo, we had Will, and everyone would get dressed up as kangaroos and would go to the streets, for example. That's how we launched new markets.
No way.
Yes.
So you definitely remember the kangaroo.
And Will was actually always involved. Like he would actually cycle into deliveries even when the company was 8 years old. It's like
But then people think it can happen to me as well because he's not this myth that I see the podcast online, but I can never relate myself to.
And what do you see as your role as kind of investors, big pie in kind of this?
Our role is to help people start, give them the ammunition to do that, to be more bold, to help them take the extra risk. And look, unfortunately in Greece, we tend to be quite introvert. I mean, we have a lot of people in the diaspora, a lot are outside, but when it comes to company building, we on average, tend to be a lot introvert. We're going to talk to the Greek funds. We're going to try to get the Greek customers. We're going to hire the Greek talent. It's more familiar. We're also at the edge of Europe. So this type of travel that you see in Western Europe, where you take the train or the car in 1 hour, you're in another country.
Yeah.
We didn't grow up like that. So it's kind of natural. And we try to push people, internationalize. Get international people to work for you. Speak with international funds. And that's one mindset. And second, connections.
Yeah.
Let me introduce you to this guy. And this guy will respond because we know each other, because it's a bit of trust. And then you build this mentality that I'm building an international company, that a big part of it happens to be in Greece.
Do you also see a role in what you were talking about before, which is bringing the inspirational, giving access to these inspirational stories to like a new generation of founders? And how do you go about doing that? We're also at the Doer Summit, right? Which is a place of these connections. So what role do you see in this?
So we try to do that the ways you can do that. Well, there are not that many. One is if you can make some one-on-one connections with founders you've backed in the past, that because you work with them, you have been on the board, they're willing to take the call.
Yeah.
Or try to get these people to come to events like this in Athens and speak, or to get them in our office. So, for example, with Big Pie, we hosted 2 really interesting cities. We didn't open it up to everyone. We actually had it for our portfolio and very close network, but we brought the founder of SaltPay and Teya, who has worked with my partner Marco. Now, this is a company that's worth a couple of billion. And then we had 20 people in the room, no cameras, no microphones, ask me anything. And you don't have the chance many times to speak with these people. We also brought Johannes, who is the CEO of Holiday, a company like 250 million in revenues from Germany. Similarly, come to the office, no cameras, no microphones, just the real stories, How was the fundraising? No, oh, great, we got an amazing fund, but more, guys, it was brutal. I still have a lot of bruises. Exactly. So it's more, trying to give a bit access to people that have been in their shoes and seeing that it's inspiring, but at the same time, they're human.
And Nico, I would love to close the session with a different question, which is, if you were not an investor, what would you be?
So my childhood dream was to be a fighter pilot. And then my parents really smartly told me, oh, you have a problem with your eyes, so unfortunately you cannot do that, which I don't.
Okay.
I don't know, actually. So at some point when I was a kid, I was thinking, when I was graduating from university, I was thinking, what am I going to do? I love technology, but I couldn't imagine myself being a coder all my life. Then I did finance, and I could not imagine myself working in a bank at all. And then the moment I read about venture capital, it was like, okay, this is it for me. There's nothing else. And when I was trying to get in the industry, everybody was telling me, forget about it. You were never going to get in. And it took a lot of rejections, a lot of efforts to get the first yes. But honestly, it's the best job in the world, so I cannot imagine myself doing anything else.
It's amazing to be able to say that about your job and kind of really be happy. Amazing.
I would do it for free, but don't tell my other partners.
You didn't hear that. Awesome. So Nick Kalliagopoulos, partner at Big Pie, thanks so much for being here with us today and sharing your insights.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Nico.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of EUROPEBUILDS, where we show that the European ecosystem is no longer an underdog story.
If you liked our episode and want to hear more, follow EUROPEBUILDS on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Born's YouTube channel.